So good morning or good afternoon or good evening wherever you are in the world. Talent Finders would like to introduce coach, author and entrepreneur Robin Pullen. Welcome, Robin.
Hi there, thanks for having me.
So Robin, firstly, congratulations on all you're achieving on your new book. Please can you share with us how your entrepreneurial journey started, and can you give us some background?
Great, thanks for that, Kerry. So, entrepreneurial journey. Yeah, I am an entrepreneur. I'm not a very good employee. I haven't been employed for very long. I've been working for myself for quite a long time.
Yeah.
I think the best way to describe it is coming out of some community work, got an opportunity to get into the training environment, and cut my teeth in team training and supervisory leadership management in the mining sector. And the work we were doing was quite successful and rapidly grew. I was working with another guy, so it was a two-man operation, and we just rapidly grew that outfit from a two-man to a 12-man, and eventually the clients were asking me to work with them directly. So they basically invited me, encouraged me to start my own business so that they could employ me directly to do the training work and the advisory consulting work. So yeah, I was doing something I loved. I got really good at team building and team training and became a trainer. And the skill and the experience and the expertise kind of made a way for me with my clients. And I've just never looked back. And that opportunity grew into my own business, and I had an African business partner, and we grew our two-man team. In about 18 months, we scaled it up to 28 staff, and then grew that again when we started doing team building and industrial theatre, so taking moving theatre, drama, and presenting production, creating, writing, and fulfilling productions, all international organizations in the space of culture, behavior change, and culture change, and organizational development. And yeah, one door led open to another, and 15 years later, I've worked with more than 108,000 people myself and my team. My products have been translated into 9 languages. We've worked in 13 countries across the continent. And I worked across, let's say, 9 to 10, 11 levels of leadership. So I often, if you hear me speak or coach or train, you'll hear me describe that I work with CEOs or any O that I see, down between the executive directors down to the janitors and rockville operators across industries and cultures. So multicultural, multi-industry, multidisciplinary, multi-site. My experiences with 2 to 5 man operations, 3 to 62,000 man operations.
Amazing. So could you just also talk a bit more into the mic? Sorry, because it's kind of breaking a little bit.
Okay, probably the internet connection.
Okay. So Robin, you recently wrote a book titled #Get Activated. What and where? What and were the reasons for writing this book?
Yes, so I'm so excited about the book, Get Activated. The subtitle is Moving from Instinctive Reactions to Intentional Responses. There's 3 answers to that question. The first answer is I wanted to leave a legacy for my kids. I wanted to have something, some product or some program or something that I could leave in the hands of my kids, and in later life they'll come back and be able to say, oh, so that's what Dad was on about. Because yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, and pretty much everything I do is wrapped up into my purpose and my passion. And the second reason is I have friends and family who I find are so often stuck with stuff they don't need to be. Their psychology, their physical health, their physical well-being, and their wealth is a frustration to them. And trying to understand why it is that we get ourselves stuck. And then the third reason for the book is, well, so I've worked with more than 100,000 people, and let's just say that there's thousands of excuses or various versions of stories of why people don't do, why clever people do stupid things, and why good people will choose to do a bad thing. And in the work that I've done as a coach and as a trainer, working across culture and international projects, been trying to understand why is it? Why do people make these poor choices that affects our behavior and then has a direct and lasting impact on our lives and our businesses? And in trying to understand that problem, I've made a couple of discoveries about human beings, about human behavior, about psychology, and specifically about emotion and the gap between what we instinctively do when we react to a situation and how different that is to what we intended and what our intention is. And the book is a description of the set of science, the sets of tactics and tools to help somebody achieve that, to stop living instinctively and learn how to respond to life intentionally.
Robin, there are so many great ideas out there and so many entrepreneurs doing amazing things. The biggest challenges are the lack of funds and leadership. What would you say is the common thread that individuals, both in entrepreneurial or in the entrepreneurial space, and why do you think so many are not doing nearly as well as they should?
Yeah, great question, and I'll answer it to the leader, manager, or owner in the SME. I think in multinational, in big corporate, in big organizations, there's a lot more moving parts to respond to the question of leadership, question of funds. And in the corporate space, it's just down to process. It's poor practice. So people don't follow the system, people don't follow the processes, and you quite often you're subject to you're part of a bigger economic challenge. So there's little that an individual can do. But in the SME and the entrepreneurial space, which is far smaller and far more dynamic, it's a whole lot more exciting. And yet, at the same time, it's exciting, but it's actually quite straightforward. The lack of funds is a leadership problem. And the lack of funds has to do with access to funding or revenue, generating income. And most often, like all the people I'm coaching at the moment, the story might look different. The story might sound different. The context might sound different, but the problem is the same. The problem comes back to what is the problem? How do we solve it? Can we package a product or a service to solve that problem? And can we find more people who have that problem that we can give it to and are willing to pay? So it comes down to sales. It comes down to a good brand, a high-quality product, and an appetite to make sales. And those require leadership. More often than not, the SME, the leader, the entrepreneur, has just taken on too many things on their plate, and they suffer a lack of funds, or the word that our economy is using quite a lot at the moment is I have a cash flow problem. Now, cash flow problem is just a revenue problem. It's poor leadership, and it's a poor level of sales, as well as poor management of the systems around selling and then recuperating funds. You made a sale, but have you got the money, and are you managing the costs to deliver the product to get the next sale? So it's the answer. It might sound too simple, but the answer is quite simple. I'm not saying it's easy. The answer is get better at your sales, get better at managing your money, and dig down deep. You can become more courageous and clear in your leadership.
Yes, of course. So that leads me to the next question. A lot of emphasis in what you talk about in the book is around our thoughts. Can you please share with us why and what we need to do or be doing differently, and can you elaborate on this?
Superb question, and let's go back to what we just talked about. Let's say lack of funds or cash flow. So the book is about learning to take intentional responses, not just being reactive based on our instincts. When I talk about instincts, I mean the lizard brain, I mean the survival mechanisms, the fight and flight system. I mean our typical reaction when our emotions go up and our thinking goes down, how we react to the pressure that we see ourselves being a part of in the business problem. So it is about thinking,
Yes.
But there's another layer. There's a more important layer, and that's not just thinking. It's learning how to understand how you're feeling about what you're thinking about. And
Yes.
more often than not, what we miss as entrepreneurs, particularly in the leadership space, is we're unaware, we're not conscious of the emotion attached to what we're thinking about and the state that that emotion induces or the state that that emotion pulls us in. For example, cash flow. When a leader, I'm talking to a couple of coaching clients at the moment, and as a business leader, as an owner, there is the frustration, the angst of I don't have cash on hand to do what I want to do the marketing, to do the sales, to grow and scale my business. But what they're not conscious of, not aware of, is that this lack of cash also has a feeling attached to it. And that feeling typically is negative. It's a constraint, it's a fear, it's an uncertainty, it's clarity or lack of clarity. And when we feel that way, we bring that energy, that state, into the thinking that we're trying to do when we're trying to solve the cash flow problem. So we're not thinking about the cash flow in a positive, creative, confident, clear manner. We're unconscious. We're not aware that we're using the lack of clarity, the fear-based, the uncertainty, that state, that emotion, that energy, and we're using that instinctively to apply to solve the cash flow problem. And that's why people don't know how to show up more effectively and courageously as a leader. That's why we solve problems and not make phone calls. Most businesses, if they want to change the problem they're in, just make more phone calls. Get in front of customers, ideal customers, get in front of your avatar, make more offers, and then close more sales. And that will solve their current business problem.
Amazing. So, obviously you've touched a lot on leadership. So there is a question here from a more global perspective. So the subject of leadership or lack of leadership. So what do you believe needs to change in order to create better leadership, especially in the current narrative?
Great question. I think the best way to describe that is to ask yourself for your own business. So as a listener listening to this podcast, what leadership does your business need? Or what would that leadership look like? If you have an effective leader, if you're the leader, or you have people in your team that you're relying on to lead, what must that look like? What behavior must change? What language must change? What energy must change? What must change in the workplace? And then a more important question, what is your customer looking for when they're looking for leadership? And then how do you show up in that way? What when it comes to change, well, how do you shift your belief? And when I say beliefs, I don't just mean your values and principles. I also mean how you show up in your energy, in your emotion. What state are you going to decide to choose to use when you make the decisions based on the choices that you have in front of you, whether they're cash flow choices, whether they're sales choices, whether they're productivity or work process, whatever choices you need to navigate as a business leader. It's about understanding how you're feeling about what you're thinking about in your work process and then choose what state you show up in. And that state changes the leadership capacity or the quality of leadership.
Yeah, 100%. So as a coach and author, the industry is so oversaturated. How and what makes you different from other coaches, and can you give us an example?
Yeah, another great question. Thank you for that. So what's my niche, or my unique selling point, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, and also what makes you different, because like I said in previous conversations to many different people, is that, there's a lot of people that are coaches and authors, but they're working out of their grandmother's garages, So they don't have the credentials to back up what their mouth says, and everybody's just selling programs and, how to get rich in 5 minutes and all this garbage. So kind of what separates you from other people in terms of your experience, and in terms of your credentials and in terms of results that you've been able to deliver for clients?
So there's the two words that you use, credentials and results. I don't really care where a person operates from, what their business platform, or do they have an office or not, do they work out of a garage or is a penthouse suite. That really doesn't matter. What matters is your ability to understand the problem that your client faces, and then your experience and expertise to identify where the change required must happen, and then the tactics and tools, best tactics and tools that can be applied and given, made accessible to your client to be able to make the shift that they require.
Yes.
So those things I have thousands of interventions with individuals and groups and teams and companies, and I understand the work that I do. I understand the space, the arena of organizational behavior or cognitive behavior change. I understand the method and modality of coaching. I'm a master trainer trained by KD Dynamic International. I'm a professional speaker. I'm the past president of the National Speakers Association in my country. And I've traveled across the continent and a couple of times across the world.
Yes.
But those aren't the important things. The important thing is that I have the non-linear ability to understand very quickly, to rapidly diagnose what's really going on in a place of work, and to understand where the chokeholds on behavior and outcome, productivity are. And then to be able to blend this behavioral change, this behavior coaching and process coaching with neurosemantic and meta coaching, and to be able to help an individual compress time or decompress the challenges that they're facing to make significant change very quickly that lasts, that is sustainable, because it's not just based on another general NLP model or coaching program model or training model. It's based on the real aspects that that organization or that business or that leader is facing, and then working at a meta-narrative level, so working with emotion and belief and heart and sense-making, not just on the physical things in front of us and the behavior that we're practicing. So I think that separates me. I'm not just a coach. I'm a coach that has a non-linear approach to understand what's really going on in the situation. And whilst I work in the behaviors of that company or that organization, I'm also working in the meta-narrative space of the people that lead that company and create the culture and the projects or programs and products that that company provides as a service or a solution to the customer.
So I want to talk about women for a moment. Why do you think we as women who are talented and have the ability to produce great work and ideas are still struggling from a confidence perspective? How and what do you believe needs to change? And how, as a man, have you been able to help? And what do you think still needs to happen in order to create the shift?
Another great question. So let me answer one. As a man, what have I been able to do? So I've partnered in our context, in our local economy, I've partnered with female-driven or female-focused groups or organizations. Women of Stature is one of them. And I'm the lead trainer for the academy that trains women to become proficient or professional public speakers and then develop programs and write books and get their message out. So I've invested a lot of effort and time into that project because there just isn't someone, we didn't see people honoring the role of the female or the woman in the marketplace without a hidden agenda to abuse that, to position women with a product or a service, but then actually just being wanting to leverage off and abuse that asset that they've created. And I believe that men and women are equal. Equality doesn't mean sameness. We're different. We have different thinking. We have different emotional capacity and emotional skills. We bring different skills to the table. To answer your question directly, why do women still struggle? Because of the narrative, the story we tell ourselves, both men and women, that women still give too much of their power away. They buy into the story. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just giving an observation.
Yeah, but I think it's also histrionics, right?
Call it whatever you want. The fact is that there is emotion attached to how we think about something. And when we give our emotion to that thing that we think about, we can give our power away. So more often than not, it's not that women are less, it's that women unintentionally give their power away. You don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that I justify environments, workplace environments or organizations that condone that. And I'm not supporting that. I'm saying that to answer your question directly, the change starts within, and the change starts with a woman understanding that she's as wonderfully made as a man is equal. Look, it's when you feel like you need to defend your rights, you've already lost them.
Yeah.
Women have rights as men. What they're doing is when they have to fight for those rights in a workplace, more often than not, in that fight, they give their power away. Rather than understanding the emotion that they have, understand the unique value that they bring to the conversation, the experience and expertise that they have in that organization, and to find ways to manage emotions. And when I say manage emotions, I'm not speaking down to a woman. A man must manage his emotions as much as a woman must. We just haven't had enough people give the kind of support to women so that they learn how to do it in a way that doesn't trigger the men to leverage it against them.
Yeah.
And it's just simple stuff that women can learn to do, to take back their power, to show up in their own authentic value, and then find ways to bring that value to the table. But now I don't discount that a lot of industry, a lot of the marketplace is lagging here, is behind, that many men are in their own insecurities and their own inefficiencies holding women back. But that doesn't give the woman the right or the excuse to give their power away. It's both journeys need to take place.
100%. So self-awareness and being conscious is also a very hot point of discussion at the moment. Why do you think that there is an awakening, but also a disconnect? And what and how do you think we still as a collective need to make these changes?
So I think with knowledge comes understanding. When with understanding, there's that saying that says, wisdom is the application of knowledge in the right time. So with understanding, we get to think and rethink how systems work and how cultures work and how communities work. And as we do this rethinking, we start to understand that sometimes a lot of what I hold true as a belief is nothing more than a strong emotional sensation that I've attached to something that I have a conviction about. And with self-awareness, I manage my emotions more effectively. I become more aware of what I'm thinking and feeling. Then I also manage my convictions. And for myself, I can speak for myself. Some of the things that I had strong convictions about, even 5 years ago, I no longer hold as a belief. I've been able to dissolve the emotion that I invested, the power that I invested in that thing, in that idea. And as I dissolve the emotion, the idea starts to shift. The clarity that I have, the understanding that I have about that idea, that ideology, starts to shift. And as I do that, I become what this word that we use, we become more conscious. Let me make it simple. It's like you're developing a real-time awareness about what you hold to be true and what you hold as truth, which defines you. And as we become more aware and awake about what we believe is true or what defines us, we can begin to say, okay, maybe some of the things that I held as true or some of the things that I allowed to define me, those things don't serve me anymore. And as I become more comfortable and confident to say, well, that idea doesn't serve me anymore, I'm going to let go of that idea. What I effectively do is I allow my belief to shift. And as those beliefs shift, I become more aware and awake. And this is the consciousness. Now, this is happening across the world for a number of reasons, but I think primarily, mostly because of technology. And with
Yes.
technology comes connectivity, and connectivity allows communication. And now we're sharing information at the touch of a thumb rapidly around the world. I'm
Yes.
on Facebook for 5 minutes and I can hear messages from people, from thought leaders and authorities from cultures around the world. That wasn't available 15 years ago. And with this access to ideas,
Mm.
my understanding, my real-time awareness, my thinking awakeness starts to shift and change. And not just me, hundreds and thousands of people like me. And this is why we have this group collective consciousness, this in our in our era, in this time in our of history, we're finding
Yes.
more and more people become aware and awake of who they are and who they're not, and with more understanding, they're able to respond to who they're not and start to change their beliefs as well as their needs and their wants and their desires, and
Yes.
they demonstrate those needs and wants in their actions. So they start to change what they buy, they start to change what they watch, they start to change what they see, and they start to change what they tolerate and what they condone. And
Yeah.
this is what's bringing massive, rapid change to communities around the world.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. So you've worked with many individuals over the years. Have some of your what have some of your lessons and learnings been in your career?
Oh, so many lessons. I think the handful of the most powerful are also the most simplest. And
Mm.
that's actually why I was inspired again. I come back to this legacy I want to leave in the book, Get Activated, how to move from instinctive reactions to intentional response. And
Mm.
the first lesson is just that, how so much of what I was doing for 25 years, 30 years was instinctive. I thought it
Mm.
was who I am. I thought it was actions and activities and behaviors and beliefs that I
Yeah.
was forced to do. But now I've come to learn that those were not forced. I wasn't forced to do them. They were instinctive. They are
Yeah.
a product of what I think and feel, a product of how I've been conditioned and how I've been trained. And I had an opportunity to revisit so many, let me put it this way, when I work with different cultures, let's say, for example, I'm a coffee drinker. I really like my coffee. And I
Yeah.
can work across 9, 10 countries in our continent. And
Yeah.
in every country, the way we do coffee is different.
Mm.
And I've been faced with an opportunity to rethink, is the way that I do coffee the right way? And it's not the right way. It is a way that is right for me. And
Yeah.
I've learned to be able to relax some of my beliefs. And some of my beliefs, they just weren't serving me. So this idea that I don't have to be trapped in the things I do instinctively. I can learn what's invaluable to me, what's important to me, and I've learned this from different cultures, that I can choose what's important to me and valuable to me, and I can do that stuff intentionally. I
Amazing.
think the second most important lesson I've learned is to separate people from practice and process. And by that I
No.
mean I work with people across the continent,
Mm.
and learning that a person is not the practice, so a
Mm.
person is not what he or she is behaving, and that practice is not the process. It's not the system that we're working with or the model or the framework. And when I've learned to be able to separate those different things, I find that I have access to so many resources, different ways of thinking, different ways of feeling, different ways of answering
Mm.
questions. There's so much to learn from different cultures and different disciplines. Um, and when I can do that separation, people, practice, and process, there's just so much more value that I can access in whatever I'm doing in that moment. I think those two are highlights for me.
Amazing. So it leads me to the last three questions. So what are some of your career highlights? What are the three key pieces of advice you would give to other entrepreneurs, and what legacy would you like to leave?
Oh, super. Career highlights. That's interesting. So I speak, coach, and train. Those are the modalities I do to bring about this intentional response, this teaching people to make a change. So the career would mean that I've had opportunities to be, for example, as a speaker. I've been the national president for our association. But more excitingly, I'm a TEDx speaker, and I've worked on some phenomenally exciting stages. I mean, the biggest stage I've worked on is actually in the US in San Diego, at the Alamo Dome in front of, I think it was 80,000 people, and then hundreds of small events across the continent. Another career highlight would be work that I did in the training space. So I'm a business coach and executive coach, and a lot of the coaching work is supported by the training that we do for the team, for the organization. And I did some work in South Sudan just before the wars broke out. And I must admit that the most open culture and community that I've worked with, people who are just hungry to learn. So I have to be careful of what I say, because everything I say and do, they're like sponges, they're like children. I don't mean they're childish. I mean they're childlike. Their minds are so eager to learn that they absorb everything I have to say. So one of the most rewarding training processes that I've done has been in South Sudan, based in Juba and then out into the districts. So that's training and speaking, and then coaching. I can't really tell you names and places because of the confidentiality, but it's a real highlight for me to see a SME leader, entrepreneur whose business, whose passion and dream influences the daily well-being of his or her staff, and they start to make the internal change. A business, the success of a business rests on the personal success of that business leader or that business owner. And when you do the personal work, you make room, you do the inner game work to make room for the outer game. So that leads me to the second part of the question. What would the advice be to entrepreneurs? I would say if you're an entrepreneur, just keep the main thing and keep it simple. Business is not complicated. We usually try and complexify things. We try and look for the complicated reason for why things aren't going well or aren't working well or why we're not making money. But that in itself is a coping mechanism. That's the instinct trying to take over, and that's your ego trying to survive. So my first piece of advice is to the entrepreneur, keep it simple. And if you're struggling, ask yourself, what is the inner game? When you are willing, when you've got the courage to do the inner game, that inner game makes room for the outer game. Nothing in your business is going to succeed and get to the next level until you give yourself permission to go there yourself first. And then the second piece of advice to entrepreneurs in that vein of simple is don't overcomplicate your business. Find a problem that you're good at, that you can get excited about, and get really good at solving that problem. And then
it's all about problem solving, right?
And then get even better at finding people who have that problem that you can make an offer. So you can make a product sale or a program sale and make those offers and learn how to sell. I think one of the advices I heard, I forget exactly, so I won't know the name, but one of the things, the myths we don't know as entrepreneurs, we think that our business is this 80-20 principle, that we'll be spending 80% of our time on the business and 20% selling. And I think that's right for the first year, 2 years, 3 years. But a better perspective, my last piece of advice for entrepreneurs, a better perspective is the reality is that you're going to spend 80% getting your business ready, getting your business right, getting your products and services right. And then there's going to come a time when you're going to have to transition, and that 80-20 is going to swap around where you're 20% delivering product and you're spending 80% in marketing, promoting, growing, scaling, growing your business. And we have to come to a place where we just accept this fact that in truth, we're all salesmen. We all need to grow our business, find more people that we can serve with our product that solve the problem, product or service that solves the problem. And then the last question, what legacy would I like to leave? That there's more in you that you think, that as anyone who hears my message, whether you're the CEO or any O that I see on the street, that inside you have access to more resources than you can imagine. If we can do the head work and the heart work, if we can not rely on instinct, if we can regulate our emotions, take control of our impulses, and unlock our own authentic power to react with intention to the things that we're looking at, that we're dealing with, that we're facing with, then you can find that there is so much more in you than you think. And just about anything is possible.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Robin, so much for joining me today, and hopefully we can have you in the future. And all the best for your future project.
Thank you so much, Karen.